Uh, the Buddha was not a Buddhist. The Buddha taught the Dharma. And there's a difference. Within the different schools around the world now, they all have in my opinion, they have a lot of cultural overlay to them. And sometimes people like that, and sometimes they don't. But the Buddha essentially taught the path to liberation. He taught samadhi and he taught insight. He taught that seeing ourselves very clearly, understanding the depth of our experience leads to liberation. And that's not contained in a religion. So even though I call the Sangha under the Bodhi tree, to me, the Buddha taught the Dharma. Just as Christ, he didn't teach Christianity. There was no Christianity, right? He taught his relationship with God. He taught love. He taught from the truth within his heart. And I think all of the great spiritual leaders did. And I think for these teachings to remain relevant, I think they have to be authentic in that they have to come from your heart. They have to come from our hearts. When you're coming to these classes with me, I'm trying to inspire you, and I'm giving you practices that allow you to open up to your experience in different ways. But I hope you don't think that I'm telling you what to think. I'm leading you, trying to lead you towards experience, towards authentic experience. And one of your jobs in being on this planet and being in this group is to really apply yourself and come to that place of authentic experience. And then we share it. We share it with each other. So what are we doing here? We're getting together as a group and we're sharing these teachings. We're sharing the Dharma. We're sharing a way of moving through life where we are opening up to ourselves, to our experience. And some of it is easy and some of it is hard. Some of it is confusing and some of it is simple and straightforward. But we apply ourselves. We get together in this group to share this journey. And we really do need each other. This is a lonely journey if you're not with a teacher or not with a group. A lot of people out there, when you ask them what their practice is, they're pretty vague. They listen to this person and they listen to that person. And what do you do when you meditate? Oh, I don't know. I just kind of sit there and try to be quiet. But we need more than that, right? We need more than that. The mind is so tricky. So the idea of having a teacher, the idea of having a group is to inspire and to give direction, to give confidence. Somebody said during the retreat last week that in their meditation, there wasn't a lot happening, but they were quiet inside. And I know from experience, from what I've experienced and from what I've heard, that sometimes there's a place in the practice where it just gets really boring. And you won't find a teacher, an experienced teacher, that won't say, that's good. That's a good place to be. So when we really apply ourselves to this practice, questions come up. I'm just sitting and there's not a lot going on, but I'm quiet. And I know from this individual that they've been doing the work. They're not just falling asleep. They're not being dull. We come to these different aspects in our practice, times in our practice, where our experiences shift. And we need clarification. We need to be able to share these experiences with each other. And you don't have to just share them with me. That's why we have a Sangha. One of the things that happen with practice is the more you understand about yourself, the more you understand you're just like everybody else. You're just like everybody else. The experiences you're having, the difficulties you're having, the ups you have, the downs you have. They're not that different than anybody else. Some people are much more this way and some people are much more that way. But even if you're much more this way, there are people that are sharing that experience with you right now somewhere. So we look at our experience, we investigate our experience. We stay on target. We stay connected with the practice. And then we get together as a group. You can reach out to people. You reach out to me. But we're sharing a space here. And I think it's also a good exercise for the group to get together without me and see what comes from that as well. Okay. So we had, for those who attended, we had a good retreat last week, both on Zoom and at the Dharma Center. And the breath practice that I taught, I want to work with that a little bit more, but I'm not sure when I'm going to do that. I'm not necessarily going to introduce it to the class tonight, because it takes a little bit of time to connect with it. But for those of you that were at the retreat and worked with the breath in that way, if you connected with it, keep working with it in that way. You don't have to have it as your main practice, but for 10 minutes, a sit or something, that breath moving from the nostrils right through those points. It's really a way of opening up the energy body and if you can do it, try to do it every day for 5 or 10 minutes, and then maybe just go back to your regular practice, and see how that goes. We're basically opening up the flow between the nostrils, the central channel, down to the hara, down to the transformation center. So I would continue to spend time with that, and maybe at some point I'll do some more teaching on that. I'm doing a course in October. I think it's a 9 or 10-day retreat, and if you can make it, that's great. And I haven't given it a name yet, but basically I always teach the same thing. So, you can call it what you want. This last retreat, we worked more on working with the breath and samatha, practice. Sometimes a little bit more emphasis on insight or nature of mind, but this last practice, we really worked on the breath a lot. And that's the way the practice works. Sometimes we work more with samatha, with breath work, with calming, and then other times we open our experience up more and look directly at the content of mind or the experience of awareness itself. So we have those points, and the practice is, moving through those practices, developing the samatha and then looking at the mind. And when we say looking at the mind, we also mean looking at that which is not content, connecting with that which is not content, connecting with that stillness. The retreat was called bliss, the samatha, clarity, that quality of mind that's no longer being pulled away, but just watching, and non-conceptuality, that's the stillness. So we develop the samatha, the calm. From that, we stay very awake, very present. The natural clarity comes. We start to watch the mind, but we're not being pulled away. And then we look directly in the face of that experience, and we find that still point. We find that still point. And it's a circle, because to find that still point, basically, we're letting go. We're right, I've used the expression mind door. We're right at the mind door. Watching, we're calm enough and clear enough, we're seeing what comes up in the mind the moment that it comes up in the mind. We're not rejecting the experience. We're not grabbing onto it. We're just watching. And being in that place, being at the mind door, there is an inherent clarity that makes itself known, because you're not grabbing on. You're not following. And from that, look directly at the face of our experience, directly in the face of that awareness. And then we use ideas like stillness, and we look for that. We look for that which is not content. These are words, but it's pointing to an aspect of our experience that is underneath all of these manifestations. And during the day, we are practicing mindfulness. We're watching the mind and knowing when we're getting caught up and knowing when we're not. During the day, we're using the breath to help maintain that balance, that connection. What's the other thing I said during the retreat? Know the mental state as the mental state. So during the day, when we're working with mindfulness, we're aware of what mental state we're in. Are we agitated? Are we joyful? Are we friendly? Are we confused? Are we worrying? Are we anxious? To know, to name the mental state, to know the mental state as the mental state. Again and again, residing with the knowing factor, with the mindfulness. And then when things start to get quiet, it's not always big shebang, big bliss. Sometimes we're just kind of quiet and there's not much happening. And that's a good thing. So this is sitting under the Bodhi tree. This is sitting under the Bodhi tree. Abiding in these teachings, abiding in mindfulness, abiding at the mind door, abiding in stillness. And if we can touch that, if we can touch that stillness every day, even if it's just for a moment or two, but if we can practice, if we can sit every day, we are training ourselves. We are making imprints in our brain to know this is this. This is this experience. This is where this experience is. We are making imprints. We are making imprints into freedom, into liberation, into joy, into compassion. We are. This is what we're doing. This is what you are doing. This is what you've been doing. It's pretty good. Better than the rest of those schmucks out there. What are they doing? Hmm? But the thing is that we're doing this internally, right? We're doing this internally. So we're living in the world. We're living in the world. But internally, we are constantly working with this. Sitting under the Bodhi tree. And then we begin, are making these imprints in the nervous system, in the brain. And we start to intuit these access points to this quietness, to this joy, to this ability not to hang on, this ability to let go. So all of the discussions, all the retreat, all the reading, all the training that we're doing, it is this one direction. This is all just one thing. It's different aspects, but it's one thing. And I think all the teachings from everywhere, from the great masters, are all just one thing. But we need support, right? We need support. Yeah, that's what we're doing here. We're supporting ourselves, we're supporting each other.